A lot of moms struggle to discipline and have like a heavy, icky feeling about it. And in today's video, I'm gonna talk about why it's hard to discipline, and it's not just because you're lazy or permissive. Oh no. Here's some reasons that it's super hard for basically all moms. So the first reason that discipline is hard is that we honestly get confused sometimes, like, what is discipline? And it has a lot of connotations, and then we can say, okay, discipline is just sort of training our child up in the way we want them to go. It's teaching them the things that are good to do, teaching them the things that aren't good to do. It may be passing on our values, it's enforcing this. And then some of us think when we hear the word discipline, we think that means like spanking or being super mean or strict or harsh, any number of things. Whatever we associate with that word really affects what happens in the moment. And you might think that it doesn't, but I'm gonna tell you, it really does. So if you think about labels we give to things, so I've been mulling over lately how a lot of moms want to have a label for their parenting, like it's positive or it's gentle or they're like a crunchy parent or whatever. And part of that, of course, is normal. We sort of biologically like to group with other people that share our values or that are like us. But that can also bind us too. So this is the reason I think that it's hard for moms is we're like, what is it? What am I supposed to do? So our kids may do something that we know is not good, like it's literally bad. And then in the moment, it's like we're like, we're frozen. We're like, I gotta do something, but if I do this, is that punishment? Is this a random consequence? Is that not a natural consequence? Do I send them to timeout? Do I know? Because timeout was so bad it had to be rebranded, which I have a whole video on. And then we just get confused and we don't know what to do. And then we're like, stop it, or we just ignore it. So this is the first reason, is that the way we think about it is messing us up. The way I like to think about discipline is that I'm just teaching my children the things that are good to do, and I'm teaching them the things that aren't good to do, and I'm helping course correct when they go off the rails. That's about how that goes. It's about that simple. We don't need all this extra stuff to talk us out of what we know we need to do. So essentially, we just need to find whatever we feel discipline is. Decide in yourself, this is what I think that it means. Feels good to me when I think about this. We want to think, what is discipline to me? We want to have a few sentences, and it needs to feel light and airy inside of us. And when it does, then we know that in the moment, in the day-to-day, we can address it without feeling this like ick feeling. The second reason moms find discipline hard is because some of us, not every group of parents, but some really feel like we need a lot of consequences, or we need a lot of follow-up. Like we have this sense that like, okay, something happened that wasn't good. Now I gotta do something. And of course this is true. Like this is ourselves saying, okay, that happened. That wasn't good. Something's gotta happen here to try to course correct my child. And actually that's true, of course. Who knows what it could be, a variety of things to do. But I want to free you from this idea that there always has to be some kind of punishment consequence per se. Sometimes there just needs to be addressing the heart issue. Now, sometimes behaviors, and this is just the truth, and any parenting person who doesn't want to tell you this either has kids that haven't reached the age of 6 or only had 1, maybe 2 of different genders 5 years apart. I said it, okay? Sometimes kids behave in a pattern and it goes on long enough that it becomes a real problem and it's gonna have real negative effects for them, and something more extreme or serious needs to be done, a consequence or whatever, it needs to happen. This happens sometimes. It does. I feel like sometimes I'm like, the one person that says the things nobody wants to hear. But anyway, sometimes that happens. But a lot of times the things that crop up in our day-to-day life with our kids don't require some big consequence. They might require a heart issue, or sometimes, and this is what I found with my kids, is that they don't often know why they do what they do. And I see why they do it. And then I can just bring that, this is why I think you did this. Is that true? And often they'll be like, oh yeah. So then I'm helping them get to, okay, well, when this happens, what's something better to do? Do you see? And I'm showing them the pattern. I'm showing them sort of what was happening under the surface they hadn't been able to verbalize. And often that's honestly enough for them to sort of dig themselves out of that behavior. It really is. So sometimes parenting is just reflecting to them what they did, right? And showing them perhaps why. And then if you're wrong, the kids will correct you. Like the kids are happy to correct you. And so for example, the other day, one of my sons is challenging. He has ADHD, and he had a lot of challenging behaviors. By the end, right before we got some help, him and the kids were coming to a lot of blows, him and the brothers, okay? So they have a lot of kind of memories of that. Well, as soon as we got a good thing in place that was going, it's much better. It's much different. But two of the other boys have a lot of lingering resentment for him. And I didn't realize until the other day, a situation happened. My son with ADHD told a joke, and it was cute. You know, they would have laughed, except I could see them not wanting to laugh or not wanting to give him any satisfaction. So they were like, I've heard that before. It's not really that funny. And so my son walked away, and I thought, okay, this is not okay. You know, this isn't something I'm gonna be like, go to your room, that was mean. This is something where I'm gonna say, I think that you have some negative feelings for him in your heart, and you just didn't even want to give him the satisfaction of laughing. Is that true? And he was like, yes, it is true. And so I said, okay, Mama gonna teach you what forgiveness is. And so this is a whole nother thing that I'm gonna do. So what I'm gonna do with the kids, I'm gonna sit them down. We're gonna talk about what are all the ways you feel like you have been wrong, that the relationship has been whatever. That's a whole nother video. Sometimes when they do something, you don't need to just throw out a random punishment. Sometimes you need to get to the heart of what they're doing. And then that is enough in the moment. So I think we have this idea that there's all of these things we need to do. Instead of feeling at peace, to follow our instinct in that moment and do what we feel needs to be done. And it might surprise you what that is. The third reason that it's hard to discipline is that we're driven by our kids' emotions. Not all the time, and not every mom, but a lot of moms really are. So this means that we're sort of on guard, and it's almost like we're kid pleasers. You know how they say like people pleasers? It's like we're like kid pleasers. Please be okay. I would like you to do this. It's actually better for you, but like, please like it. If you like it, we can do it. If you don't like it, maybe we won't do it. Or, and this is what often happens, moms end up trying to like trick and manipulate. By manipulate, I mean like try to do ninja moves to get the kids to like the thing that you know is good for them, and it doesn't matter if they like it or not. And you're trying to do all of this just to manage the fallout of how you think they're gonna feel. So sometimes it's hard to discipline, and we feel icky, and we feel all tied up, and we're just like, oh, you know, because we just know that the kids ain't gonna like it. And I used to actually, this for a while, this happened, and I was talking about this on a podcast yesterday actually. It's like gradually kind of happened during a really stressful period where I sort of let them take over some control that wasn't appropriate for them, and they got a little too big for their britches, as everybody on earth does when they're given control past their ability to sort of maturely cope with it. And then whenever I would try to kind of stand up and be like, don't do this, I would get a lot of pushback. So whenever something was happening and I knew I needed to take charge, so to speak, I actually started to go into fight or flight because I was anticipating how they were going to respond to me. And it was hard. It made it hard for me, and I felt so stressed. And then because I had all that adrenaline coursing through me, I would yell. Not all the time, but sometimes. Honestly, I'm not fully against yelling. You can watch my video about what moms shouldn't do when we're angry. And of course, we don't want to scream at the kids, but like sometimes yelling is appropriate. You should watch that video. Such an intensely stressful crisis situation happened in our family that I kind of snapped out, and I was just like, you know what? I don't care. I actually can't cope with the kids' emotions right now at all. They're gonna have to do whatever I tell them, whenever I tell them, and they're just gonna have to do that right now, and that's all that's happening. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying in my intense crisis survival mode situation, this is what I did. And when I did that, it was almost like I took that control back, and the kids instantly knew it. And then from then on, I could be, not all the time, it's never perfect. Just at church the other day, the kids were, you know, fooling around during worship, put my arm around between them, and I kind of just flicked them a little bit, and then they just stopped. They had gotten used again to listening to me. So I hope that I'm not just like rambling. I know y'all don't care about my actual life situations. I just wanted to use those to show you that if you're always going into fight or flight before you have to discipline or tell them to do something or tell them to stop, it's likely because you know there's gonna be pushback, because we feel so driven by their emotions because we're kid pleasers. Do you guys hate my videos or what? I know, I feel like everybody's just always talking about all of the reasons kids do all these things, and like we forget to talk about moms. If any of this rings true for you, I wrote a book called If Mama Ain't Happy, and it's out now, and I talk a lot about why minding healthy boundaries is good for the whole family. So if you kind of feel like you're in this place where discipline is hard, but you're just so strung out, it's like you don't even have the energy to do it, I really encourage you to check that out, and I'll link it in the description, or you can just get it in any of the places books are sold. So the fourth reason that it's hard for moms to discipline is because sometimes they get confused being strict with being mean. Now, I'm gonna do a whole video on this because I've been thinking about this for years. Now, I live in the South, and in the South, we still have this idea, culturally speaking, that kids just need to act right. we just have this general idea, like it's sort of like a collective thought that kids shouldn't be rude or they shouldn't scream or throw down or whatever. I'm not saying this is always right. I'm just saying this is how it is. But what I often see, like when I'm at Walmart now, I probably wouldn't see this at Target, certainly wouldn't see this at Whole Foods, but when I go to Walmart in my small town, which is basically the only place to grocery shop, or Winn-Dixie, I often see a lot of moms who are sort of totally ignoring their kids, and then their kids do something that's kind of annoying, like stand up or reach out or walk away a little bit, and then the mom will be like, get back over here. I told you to stay by me. And in those moments, I can tell, even that is just like a strong way to say something. And you know, we can't ever know as observers. Maybe that child literally never listens and the mom lost it, right? But often it's like nothing's happening and they lose it. And I think sometimes we can feel so desperate that we think if we're being mean, this is disciplining. Or if we're like, you never listen to me. You are always doing this. You know, we start to attack their character instead of just bringing them back. This kind of is difficult for us. Obviously it's difficult for the kids, but the thing I'm trying to hang on to here is that if you're listening to this, that's probably not how you are unless you snap. But probably where you are, or where I have been at times, is feeling like being too strict is being mean. So sometimes mom thinks that they yell and scream and then that is being strict. No, that's just you losing it. And then some moms think if we try to be too strict, we're actually being mean. You see what I'm saying? We got them confused because being strict is about how many rules you have and enforcing them. Being mean is about a character issue. They're not the same. What we need to take hold of is that disciplining our kids, helping show them the way, even how many rules that we have, that in itself doesn't make us mean. We're not mean unless we're mean, right? But so much of the parenting stuff now, we've got gentle parenting, and even just the label. We see them everywhere. They seep into our psyche, and then we're like, oh my goodness, my child just lied to my face straight up the 3rd time this week. But like, if I'm mad, I'm not positive. If I don't just sit him down with a cookie on a soft place to discuss this heart, like I'm not gentle. It's like, what? You know, like we're so strung out by what we're seeing elsewhere, we don't even know how to follow our own intuition or instinct anymore, because sometimes these labels of parents, they box us in. Separate being strict from being mean. Forget about if we need more rules than other people to be okay, then we just need them, and that's okay. And we don't need to worry that addressing a situation that's happening in our home that isn't good is gonna damage them. You know what's gonna damage them? Growing up used to lying and thinking that it doesn't matter. They're gonna end up with dysfunctional, unhappy relationships. The 5th reason we have trouble disciplining is that we just flat out want our kids to like us. I want my kids to like me. I want them to think I'm cool. I want them to think I'm funny. I want them to be proud of me. I don't want them to be embarrassed by me. I don't want them to ever walk by me and have any type of negative emotion about me. I want them to think my mother's the best mother in the whole world. I want them to think I wouldn't want any of my friends' mothers. My mom does everything right. Everything she cooks is good. Everything she says is wise. This is what I want my kids to think. There, I said it. Can you admit it? Can you admit it? Because we want them to like us so desperately that we get really torn when we need to do something we know they're not gonna like, because then we think they're going to associate those bad feelings with me. And I don't want them to, because I want them to love me. And this is normal, and it's just how it is, because we want them to like us. So we've just got to separate out whether they like it or not, or whether our reaction to their behavior or whatever it is isn't great. We have to first determine, do I parent because I'm thinking of my kids good? Am I thinking of my kids? Am I doing this? And I say this to my kids sometimes. I say, sometimes in the short term, you're really not gonna like what I'm doing. But that's because I'm thinking in the long term. Sometimes in the short term, something is not great, but the long term, it's great. And I'll say it when this is happening, you know, if that applies. And they get it, the kids get it. Sometimes we have to say, you know what, is it more important for them to like me in this moment, or for me to do the thing that I know that I need to do? For me to address the thing I know needs to be addressed. And it takes courage. It takes courage to feel like the kids are gonna get mad at us. It really does, but we just gotta do it. We just gotta buck up and do it. And so my biggest encouragement to you, if you're still here, is to try and untangle your feelings about the word discipline. to try to figure out what it means to just raise your kids well. What is sort of your values? What is the things you care most about? And just to keep your eye on those and to try to drop off of all of these feelings about how you should do everything perfectly, so that you can actually in the moment just respond what you feel intuitively is the right thing to do. And you won't always do it right, and then you might need to have a do-over, which is the perfect segue to end this video and say, go check out my video on do-overs, because the times that we don't discipline well, don't do what we should have said something else, messed up, whatever, we can always do a do-over. And that really goes a long way to carry on the relationship. So I hope this video has helped you, and I'll see you on my next one.